The EU gives the green light for accession negotiations with Ukraine, but failed to approve a vital financial aid package. Israel says it will take months to destroy Hamas as the UN calls for more access to Gaza to help its starving population.
Euronews speaks to two-time tennis Grand Slam champion Simona Halep a year after she was found guilty of doping.
Mixed news for Ukraine on Thursday, as the European Union failed to agree on a €50 billion aid package for the war-torn country, but did open accession negotiations with Kyiv for it to join the bloc. The historic decision to start talks with Ukraine and neighboring Moldova comes after weeks of veto threats from Hungary. Supporting Kyiv was welcomed in Brussels as a symbolic step.
I would like to send a positive and a reassuring signal, because we have tools to guarantee that we are reliable and that the Ukrainians can count on our support.
Ukraine's president welcomed the news, but stressed that there would be a long road ahead.
Велика робота інтегрувати державу, всі інституції, всі норми, все це до Євросоюзу, але зробимо. Україна вже не раз доводила, на що ми здатні. Буде інше переможне рішення, буде час, коли зможемо відсвяткувати вступ України в ЄС.
But the failure to agree on a new financial aid package was also a heavy blow, as Ukraine desperately needs the money to stay afloat. Earlier this week, Zelensky visited Washington in an unsuccessful bid to persuade U.S. lawmakers to approve additional funding.
Vladimir Putin says there will be no peace in Ukraine until goals are achieved, among them the denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine. Russia's president said this at his end-of-year press conference, in which he assured that Kyiv achieved nothing during its great counter-offensive, which began last summer, and that Russian troops improved their positions on the front, which is now more than 2,000 kilometres. Over 600,000 Russian troops are currently fighting in Ukraine, Putin said.
Мир будет тогда, когда мы достигнем своих целей, о которых вы сказали. Теперь вернемся к этим целям. Они не меняются. Вот я напомню, о чем мы тогда говорили. О денацификации Украины, о демилитаризации, о ее нейтральном статусе.
The head of the Kremlin described what's happening in Ukraine as an enormous tragedy, similar to a civil war. About the situation in the Gaza Strip, Putin described it as a catastrophe and denied that the level of destruction there has any similarity to what's happening in Ukraine. Ukrainian soldiers on the battlefront are finding themselves short of ammunition. The biggest challenge for US President Joe Biden is that he's not getting the money he needs from Congress to continue supporting Ukraine, which is facing dwindling supplies of artillery shells and air defence ammunition. Deliveries from Europe have also fallen dramatically. In the Donbass, a military unit leader said that last year they were receiving 3 or 4 times more shells from the EU. The soldiers are taking part in a war with no end in sight, but are having to undergo a period of restraint. And it's not just international support that worries the Ukrainians. In Kyiv, hundreds of people demonstrated on Thursday to demand more support for the country's armed forces. They want the authorities to prioritise spending on the war effort at a time when family and friends are dying on the front line.
Finland says it will reseal its entire eastern border starting at 8 p.m. on Friday due to an ongoing influx of migrants at 2 crossing points on its frontier with Russia that were temporarily reopened early on Thursday. Local authorities say that more than 70 migrants without proper documentation or visas had arrived at the 2 checkpoints by Thursday evening, with the number predicted to increase rapidly. Helsinki has accused Moscow of orchestrating an influx of asylum seekers in what it's called an act of hybrid warfare.
Israel's defense ministry says it will take months to destroy Hamas as the country faces increasing international isolation over its bombardment of the Gaza Strip. Israel's top ally, the United States, says it wants the war to end as soon as possible. and called on Israeli forces to switch to more targeted surgical operations in the Palestinian enclave.
Today could end today if Sinwar did the right thing and just laid down his arms and surrendered and gave the hostages back. That doesn't look likely right now, this war that Hamas started. And Israel has a right and responsibility to continue to conduct this war to protect their people and to protect their nation.
Intense fighting continues in the Strip, despite claims by the Israeli Defense Forces that Hamas militants are surrendering right, left, and center. Close to 19,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war began. This as the United Nations is calling on Israel to give it more access to the enclave.
The humanitarian operation is really on the brink of collapse, and it's just not possible to deliver in an orderly fashion under these conditions. What we really need is to step up the volumes, and for that we need more crossings.
The UN says that half of Gaza's population is currently starving, and 9 out of 10 people are not eating enough or even every day.
Seven people, including 4 suspected Palestinian militants, have been arrested in Denmark, Germany and the Netherlands on suspicion of planning attacks on Jewish institutions in Europe. It is not clear if there is a link between the arrests made. German officials allege 3 of the men have been long-standing members of Hamas and have participated in Hamas operations abroad. Danish police say they would increase their public presence in Copenhagen and around Jewish cultural and religious sites.
Og det helt rigtigt, at både FE og PET jo igennem det seneste stykke tid har udtrykt, at der er en høj risiko i Danmark. Det er meget, meget alvorligt. Og det er selvfølgelig i forhold til Israel-Gaza fuldstændig uacceptabelt, at der er nogen, der tager en konflikt et andet sted i verden med ind i det danske samfund.
The Netherlands have increased security threat levels as thousands of people attend Christmas markets and other holiday festivities. EU officials warned that Europe faces a huge risk of terrorist attacks due to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas.
2 leading human rights groups have accused Greek authorities of failing to properly investigate the deaths of hundreds of migrants who drowned when their overcrowded boat sank off the coast of southern Greece last June. In a joint report, Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International said little meaningful progress has been made in examining allegations that a rescue mission was delayed and mishandled. About 750 people were crammed into a rusty fishing trawler travelling from Libya to Italy. 104 people were rescued and 82 bodies were recovered.
Threads, the app created by Meta to rival Twitter, now known as X, has been launched in the EU. It comes months after the platform was introduced to the US and other global regions. Since then, Meta has been working to make its latest product compliant with data protection and other EU regulations. Mark Zuckerberg's Meta is aiming to capitalise on a collapse in Twitter users and advertisers since it was taken over by Elon Musk. More than 100 million people joined Threads within a week of its launch in July outside the EU.
Good news for e-commerce giant Amazon on Thursday when Europe's top court ruled that it does not have to pay €250 million in back taxes to Luxembourg. It dismissed the European Commission's argument that the American company's tax arrangements amounted to illegal state aid. But the ruling is seen as a blow to the bloc's efforts to crack down on sweetheart tax deals for multinationals. NGO Oxfam denounced the decision, describing it as an early Christmas gift to Amazon, and urged the EU to come forward with real tax reforms.
French actress Isabelle Adjani has been sentenced in absentia to a 2-year suspended prison sentence and a €250,000 fine for tax fraud and money laundering. She was found guilty by a Paris court of fraudulently taking up residence in Portugal in 2016 and 2017 and passing off a donation of €2 million as a loan. She has always maintained her innocence, and her lawyer says she will appeal the ruling.
The world beneath Simona Halep's feet crumbled last year when she was found guilty of doping. The two-time Grand Slam champion has now been banned from tennis for 4 years until 2026, but she's hoping that ruling will soon be reversed by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. A hearing for her case has been set in February after the International Tennis Integrity Agency found she deliberately took performance-enhancing drugs. Halep, however, says that verdict is wrong.
It's very clear that it was a contamination. 3 days before the positive urine test, I was negative blood and urine. So I've been told at the beginning that it's extremely low quantity of this substance, banned substance, and in those 3 days I could not have doped. It was not my intention and never has been the intention to do something wrong or something disrespectful to this sport, because I have respected everything and I dedicated my life. My principles are not like this, so I didn't think to cheat in tennis.
There was another twist in the tale last month when a high-profile coach, Patrick Muratoglu, admitted after a year's silence that his technical team were to blame for giving Halep a contaminated substance. She's expressed great relief about the revelation, as it may prove to be crucial for her return to court.
That's why you hire people, because you need information, you need to be better. So I always trusted this, and my trust is broken a little bit right now. And in the future, I don't know how it's going to be, if I can trust again, and probably I have to learn, because this is my principle in life. If you hire somebody and you work with that person, you have to trust.
Why do you think it took him so long to...
Watch the full interview with Simona Halep on Euronews from 10 o'clock on Friday night.